Okay, hello everyone. This is Muhammad Jamil here with you guys. I've started the recordings, so I welcome you all in this event for today, where we are going to be discussing Agile for non-IT industries, mainly for participatory budgeting, mental health in IT, and banking and fintech. Just a heads up, one of our friends Jatin was supposed to join us from Canada. For banking sector, but he just called me a while ago. He has a family emergency, so he probably might not be able to join. He did say that if he gets time if he is able to, he might join in between. But otherwise, we might not have him for the session today. So other than him, we have Daniel joining us. Luke is here. Ezekiel is joining us from Nigeria. I will pass it on to them in a bit, where they can explain about themselves. They can introduce about themselves and what they are doing in which industry, and how they are utilizing Agile in their industry. The format of this event is we have allocated maximum 2 hours for this event. Since we have lesser speakers than what we planned, we might end up wrapping up a bit early, but we'll try to utilize the time we have allocated for this. Uh, so first few minutes, I will just take a few minutes to talk about the event format. Following that, we will have a short introduction from each panel members. And then after that, we will jump into the topic of the session today, where each panel member will be talking about which industry he's working in. We have a senior panel today, people with a lot of experience in their industries. So they will talk about how they have implemented Agile in their industry, what kind of challenges they faced, how they were able to overcome those challenges, what were the benefits they got out of uh, implementing Agile. And then uh, we will conclude the session with a Q&A session, where you guys will be putting up some questions in a link I will share in a bit, and then we will come towards and toward to all those questions, and we will try to answer maximum number of questions we can in that time slot. So this is it. I will just mention that we had a organization Coach Reach. They sponsored our event for today. They helped us with some design and marketing. But again, one of the guy who was going to join us to represent that company was not available, so we don't have them anymore in the event. So, but they did help us, so it's good to mention. So this is the way the event will go. I will post a link in a chat in a bit, but before that, I would like Daniel to introduce himself. Once you are done, Daniel, you can pick Luke or Ezekiel, so they go next. Okay. To the audience, we do have pretty less audience today, but I would appreciate during the event if you guys can keep your video mics mute to avoid any disruptions. I'm fine if you guys can keep your videos on, but we do have a Q&A session where you can directly ask question, or you can post the question on a link I will share in a bit. Uh, but I appreciate if the mics can be muted. Over to you, Daniel.
Thank you for hosting this event, Mohammed. Hello, everyone, wherever you are. My name is Daniel Breston, and I've been in IT for 50 years. I started as a computer operator. This was before people went and met in a ski lodge for a couple of days, or well before people went and met in a ski lodge for a couple of days, and started the industry known as Agile. It was well before at the same time, people were considering, or at least the development community, as they were doing their stuff, we in operations and IT service management were creating our world of ITIL and IT service management. And I began to play as I became a consultant after leaving the role of CIO and IT director, a coach and author, and gladly got dragged into the world of DevOps. which to me is the blend of Agile, of Lean, of IT service management, and other practices. And my focus, my industry focus right now is helping IT managers and IT leaders. I think everybody is at after COVID hit us and moved us all into the digital world, whether we wanted to or not, rather quickly. So we're all IT now. There is no such thing as non-IT. And my focus is to help people recognize the fact that, you know, when they say Agile, what do they really want and what do they mean? And how is that going to help them do things better, faster, safer, and with more satisfaction for their staff, for their customers, and for the community they serve? Who am I going to pick on now? Luke.
Hi, everyone. Like Daniel, I have had a rich history in development. I helped form the first Agile conference in 2003. I've served on the board of the Agile Alliance. I have written 4 books, hopefully helping people in various aspects of their various Agile journeys. I do some consulting, but I tend to be a practicing Agilist as opposed to a sidelines coach. I like to be in the game. So when you tell me that it's hard to write a user story, I say I agree, because I have trouble writing user stories and building out roadmaps and working with my dev team. If you go to the Scrum Alliance, you can find a bunch of collaboration at scale webinars. So I ran for 2.5 years the world's largest webinar series on collaboration. And a year and a half ago, Dean Luffingwell acquired my company and integrated the software platform that was Weave into SAFe, and it's now SAFe Collaborate. And I was responsible in SAFe for the rather major changes and overhaul of SAFe to be customer centric. So before I got to SAFe, customers were over on the corner in a little sideline. And after I got done with SAFe, customers are dead center and everything circles the customer. So I was responsible for the product management discipline and the portfolio management discipline. And I'm now, once again, because I love to build stuff, and I'm sure many of you love to build stuff, I'm starting a new company, First Root, and we are fighting economic inequality and saving democracies around the world. The US is no longer a really good example of what a functional democracy should be, which is very disappointing. So I'm committed to saving democracy. And we're committed to doing that through participatory budgeting, which is a technique endorsed by the United Nations, started in Porto Alegre, Brazil, and has spread around the world. It's done in Africa, it's done in Asia, it's done in Europe, it's done in LATAM. And we're building a platform for specifically doing participatory budgeting in schools with kids. So we have this radical idea. We teach kids how to have a democratic experience by giving them money. And then we help the kids make good choices about how to invest that money. It's kind of fun because you get to watch all the parents be nervous. And then the parents get happy when they see what their kids do. So it's kind of a dual thing. You know, before it begins, parents are really nervous. And then during, they become less nervous. And then when we're done, the parents are happy and the kids are happy because the kids had a great experience and the kids made change happen. So our term in our daily stand-up, when we're done speaking and we want to go to the next person, is we say popcorn, because it's like pop. If I don't know if you guys eat popcorn, but we like the word popcorn. So I'm going to popcorn to Ezekiel.
Okay, thank you, and it's good to meet us today in this session for the Agile Reflect. Yes, so I have a lot of background in implementing solutions that solve problems. I've been in the banking industry for quite some time, insurance, and also a bit on the public sector. I've been involved in Agile transformation in a key bank, a large transformation that later became adopted as the standard operating way of delivering solutions and products in the bank. I've also been involved in leading an important change of the merger of a large insurance company that resulted into 3 different companies. And I'm a lot focused on, helping use Agile to help improve on insurance uptake, especially through microinsurance products. In Kenya, for example, insurance penetration is barely 2 to 3%, and you find that a number of people who need insurance services, for example, do not get it for many reasons. And if we target the right persons and we practice good Agile ways of work, then we can be able to bridge this gap and minimize dependencies on social networks that become exhausted when the needs become so demanding and the finances are so limited. So I'm largely enthusiastic about Agile, and I continue to champion Agile and help individuals and teams as well as organizations to see how well Agile can be used to realize value in the shortest time possible. More so in this time where it is less by choice, by necessity, but more by necessity that we must be more agile than ever before in order to remain not just in a survival mode, but to also leap into the future as technology and solutions on digital platforms take center stage in shaping how the world runs. So I think that's it in a nutshell. We'll talk in details in subsequent sections.
Thank you, everybody. Really glad to have you all here. Thanks for all the introductions. I just want to share one thing before we jump into the discussion. I'm posting a link in the chat, and I'm just sharing my screen for a minute to show you guys something. I believe you guys are able to see my screen now. So this is the link which I've shared in the chat. If you open it, I've created 4 boards here where you can post your questions. So any general question, oops, I have a typo there. So let's say you can just click on the plus icon and then just park your question here. We'll be coming towards all of the questions which are posted here, and we will answer those in towards the end. If you just have any other question, you can just unmute yourself in the Q&A session, and you can ask directly as well. But I appreciate if it's posted here. The reason is if you think that the question you want to ask is already posted, don't post it again, just like it so we know that this question has been liked by multiple people, so we will answer them accordingly. The more liked questions are the questions which are more asked, and we will answer those questions first. So if you want to put a general question that can be answered by anyone, just put it here. If you want to ask a specific question, let's say for banking related question, you can post it under this column, so that goes to the particular panelist, or it's about particular industry. So that's how this is going to be done. You have the link in the chat. Just feel free to park your questions there, and we'll come to this towards the end. Okay, so let's jump into the actual discussion about Agile in non-IT industries. We did have one event last week as well, where we talked about Agile in oil and gas, design and construction, and hardware industries. Today we are talking about participatory budgeting, for which we have Luke here with us, and then Ezekiel is going to be talking about Agile in banking, and Daniel is going to talk about Agile in mental health for IT. So I would like to pass it to Daniel first, so he can tell us about his Agile journey in his industry, what he was able to do so far, how he did that, and what were the benefits that he achieved. Over to you, Daniel.
Okay, thank you. Like I said in my introduction, I've been in IT for a long time. And because I started on the operations side, when I first started in IT, developers and operations people actually got along rather well. We were all more or less in the same room. We more or less talked the same language because we worked on the same type of device. We knew who our customers were, even though we were a large bank. We had a lot of customer interaction, a lot of internal user interaction. So it was kind of easy. But over time, as distributed technology came in, the world of Unix, the world of Linux, as more and more stuff was added into the computer room, the developers moved out, and the silos started to appear. Program management came in, and that added more silos. The bank kept merging with other banks, and that added more silos. And the next thing we knew, we still need to be 24/7 by 365. But how were we supposed to do that? How are we supposed to let new things come live and changes to occur that were fixing things and improvements to occur to make everyone more satisfied while still keeping everything up 100%? So the different frameworks, for lack of a better word, that came into play at the time were ITIL, and then Agile, and then DevOps, and then Lean, and it just kept going, and then. And the challenges were is that as I continued to see my team struggle as a CIO, and then still experience that as I travel the world as a consultant and coach, was I would say service management, you would say Agile, somebody else would say DevOps, and we were all talking different languages. We all had the same outcome. We all had the same goal, and that was to use technology in a better, faster, and safer way to service the people that were going to benefit from our technology, but we were using different languages, and that caused stress. It caused stress because the product teams and program managers didn't know what we were talking about when we talked to them. It caused stress because we were asking developers to prove to us that they were ready to go live with stuff. It caused stress because we weren't keeping up as operations people or service management people with what was happening in the development environment, because they were able to go a lot faster than we were. We've caught up now because there's some great stuff now on the market, so everyone is more or less equal. But it did cause a lot of stress, and I just want to be, introduce a little conflict and drama into this. It caused so much stress that actually one of the people in one of the teams died. He came to breakfast one morning. We were all on a big program, and at breakfast he just slumped over, and that was it. And from that point on, I became more interested in, if I wasn't already very interested in, what was the health and state of my team, and what was the health and state of all the individuals that supported my team or asked my team to do things. Because we'd forgotten to take free time, we'd forgotten to listen to what the Agile Manifesto said very wisely, which was, interactions are more important than processes. And you have to do it in such a way that safety and a safe culture is key to the way of experimentation and the ways of collaboration, communication, and working together. So we had to learn how to become more vulnerable. We had to learn that when we asked how you were today, that was not a chance for us to say, you are not alone, or I went through this too. It was a chance for us to shut up. It was a chance for us to be quiet. If you look at the word listen and you rearrange the letters, you get the word silent. And what you have to do is you have to let people speak, honestly ask them how they're doing. And this is now the accountability, I'm going to use a very strong word here, of the product owner and the responsibility of the Scrum Master to ensure that people have a chance to say, how are they doing? And don't challenge them. Sometimes just a chat is all they want. Sometimes just an opportunity to be listened to. We started introducing bi-weekly, how are you stand-ups. So instead of the normal stand-up, we had a chance for everybody to just go, hey, I'm a little stressed. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, and I'm just a little stressed. We didn't try to help them in that, but at least it was a cue that somebody had to go and talk to that individual, and they realized that they could do that and not be thought bad about because they did that. The head of evolution at Mental Health at Work in the UK, Maggie Rose, goes, asking people to listen more sounds simple, but we know it's not easy, and if you hear yourself talking too much, then quite probably you're not listening. So, my point of just listening, having check-ins, we created a Slack group, and the Slack group, we called it Vent. And you could go into the Slack group and you could just vent. You had to vent respectfully. You couldn't curse or swear or name other people out, but you could vent. You could just type something in, and it was, people started using it. It was just a way to let off steam, and that was quite useful. All of the frameworks love being visual. Contrary to popular belief, Kanban, value stream management are quite visual tools that encourage you to put stuff onto them in such a way that you can clearly show blockers. You can clearly show, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but I am doing a heck of a lot of unplanned work. Using Kanban, using value stream mapping, to me and to my teams, was a much better opportunity to show what was really happening in the organization, what was happening in the teams, than burn down or burn up charts. We almost stopped using them actually and moved completely over. Because the challenge for us was to try to let people know that, there's certain types of work in IT. There's new stuff. There's improvements to that new stuff or features. There's the stuff that has to be done because technical work has to still occur. And then there's unplanned work. And if you take those items on a weekly basis, so a great Scrum Master or product owner or CIO, and you put them on top of each other, you have a great geography map. And what you should be seeing is that your teams are working on the important stuff. And what you probably are seeing, if you do that right now, is that people are working on unplanned work. And what you need to do is you need to go find out who's the cause of that unplanned work. And surprisingly, you might be the cause. You, Mr. Leader, might be the cause. You, Mr. Stakeholder, might be the cause of that unplanned work. And so we took the unplanned work and we colored each one of the types of work that we did at different colors. And we took the unplanned work and said, this is unplanned because something broke and we got thrown into it. Or this is unplanned because people kept rearranging our priorities. And we just colored them two colors. And when people started to see that, we started to be able to collaborate on priorities. We started to be able to get a handle on what we're supposed to do. And that relieved a lot of stress. We also realized that when leaders came in and said, hey, team, go, what people heard was, you're not moving fast enough. When leaders came in and went, we're going to collaborate, what teams really heard was, we're going to coerce you into doing what we want to do. So we ended up trying to get leaders to speak properly. The word automation is a helpful word. It's not a word to say we're about to fire you. The word automation is we're going to get rid of some of the stuff that everybody doesn't like doing. It's manual, it's repetitive, it's boring. And what we're going to do instead is we're going to upskill you. So the amount of time that you yourself have been working to try to do stuff, now let's upskill you. Let's create a new way of training you so that you can improve the way that you work, if you will. And we also made sure that nobody was working 100% of the time, that they had time to go and be with their family, especially during the COVID time, or take walks or whatever. The outcomes that we ended up with were that people wanted to talk and they were able to raise their hands and do that, and that was great. It was easier for us to go and get people to work together, even if it was virtual. So peer programming, if you want to be technical about it, or getting customers to come in and work with us online, because we would create groups of customers and we would send them emails and go, hey, we're creating new products for you. We're a bank, we're creating new ways of lending or creating new ways of even signing on so that you can do stuff. We're creating a new mobile app. We need you to give us your input. And we started working with a lot of individuals, you know, across the spectrum of age, of location, and that proved a lot of interest to the teams. And that actually reduced stress because they got to actually see the outcome of their work, which they hadn't seen before. I have as you guys can now see, thank you, Mohammed, for really focusing on my room. I am a great Batman fan. I've been probably following Batman longer than I've been in IT. And I love the quote, why do we fall? And the reason is so that we can learn how to pick ourselves up. And what you have to do is you have to figure out a way to pick yourself up, and how are you going to learn? How are you going to improve? How are you going to experiment? What tools do you need? And can those tools remove the shackles such that you now have some superpowers within your own organization and within your team to be able to do things better and faster? Better and faster have to always be said together. You cannot just say better, and you cannot just say faster. You must say better and faster. There's a reason that quality and velocity should go together, and you cannot sacrifice one for the other. I think the most recent thing that's been happening, especially over the last couple of years, and I know Luke's going to be talking about this a lot more, and I've just started to look at it because it's becoming more and more prevalent, but the use of cloud has really allowed us to consider, hey, when our code is bad, we leave a very large carbon footprint. When our code is good, or we turn off environments when we're not using them on the weekend because we can fire them up in just a couple of minutes when we come in on Monday morning, or we don't even use a whole lot of environments, then we start to get into the world of enterprise corporate responsibility. We start to look at not only satisfying our own team and satisfying our internal users and external customers, but satisfying the rest of the universe that has technology around it. So the product owners and the stakeholders were the places where we coach now. They start actually having weekly meetings, or at the retrospectives, or some type of session that gets created. We start having sessions where people start talking about, but if we did this, this, and this, what would be the impact to the amount of power that we use, the amount of air conditioning that we use, all the different things that happen as you use technology and give it to other people. And that got us into the world of accessibility. I have acute glaucoma. So when you start using different types of screen products, how do people visualize that? Those types of tools can actually help you make what you give to normal people look even better. So we started to learn how to use those types of things. I think the big tips that we have is that you keep hearing customer first. I think that's wrong. I think it's staff first. I think it's us first. I think it's leaders first. And leaders helping themselves to learn. You know, Luke is one of the forerunners of all this agile stuff. And I was laughing the other day with the CIO. I was going, you know, it's 17 programmers met in a ski lodge for a couple of days and came out with this thing called Agile, and the world changed. I would have loved to have been the first person that walked into some CIO's office and said, hey, these 17 programmers got together in a ski lodge, and I think we should, you know, do what they came out with. And I wanted to know what the response of that first CIO that heard that discussion did to that poor little developer as he hung him outside to dry or something. And now, you know, everyone is trying to figure out what is this agile thing and what can we really do about it. And the same thing with DevOps. And I'm here to tell you right now, it really doesn't matter. Stop using the terms and just figure out how you can use automation to help your teams and your customers. People keep talking about DevSecOps. Oh, please, I'm bored now. Security has been around for a long time, and security is there not only to keep your infrastructure and your applications safe, but security is there to help build trust. And if you build trust within your teams, you build trust with your stakeholders, and you build trust with your customers, and that really is actually quite beneficial, because when you're trusted, you don't have the same type of mental health and stress issues. For quality, we used to work on deadlines and timelines, which meant that we shipped first and then we fixed. And what DevOps and Agile taught us was that you fix first and then you ship. And I think that's a very important lesson. You know, don't move bad stuff outside of your own environment. If it's not ready to go live, it's not ready to go live. Somebody has to, you know, recognize that and recognize what the impact is, and make sure that what's going out is safe, because that also will reduce stress of teams if they all of a sudden have to, you know, work to fix stuff. Use intelligent indicators of performance that are key. Lines of code, number of user stories that you did, that's boring. Make the indicators of performance that are key matter to the people that's actually doing the work and to the organization, so they can see how it's aligned. Concentrate first on the satisfaction of your teams. Get people to collaborate with each other. Even in a virtual environment, it's easy to introduce peer work and peer programming and peer development. Work with your customers. And then that one word that we don't always hear, you know, we always hear about continuous integration and continuous deployment and all the other continuous stuff. I'd like to introduce continuous celebration. Can we please have a way of continuously celebrating our effort, our improvement, the way that we work together, and the outcomes that we've achieved? For me, mental health, because of what I've seen over the last 15 years, is something that a leader needs to work on every day. It's part of their business continuity program. It's part of everything that they do as a leader, no matter what level in the organization, of recognizing that someone has an issue, or that people are struggling, or just, you know, today is not a good day. Back off. And recognizing that and supporting that individual in ways that allow them to come out of it on their own, or come out of it with a feeling that, you know, they're safe, they're going to be okay. I welcome your comments, and I hope to explore this further with you. I wanted to give you enough so that you could start to ask questions. And thank you very much again for this. Back to you, Mohammed.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for sharing all of this. Some very good points, especially I like the part where you mentioned about continuous celebration. That was very good. I like the idea. Also, the part where you mentioned while not the customer first, us first as a team, as a staff. So staff first. That was also a good point. So we'll come back to you with some of the questions which are there on the board. Um, Now, meanwhile, who you want to pick for the next one, from Luke or Ezekiel?
You're asking me?
Yes, you are the first one, so you get the pick.
Oh, well, I picked Luke last time, so that's not fair. So I'm going to use popcorn and go to Ezekiel.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, so I would say that banking is one sector, for example, that has really embraced Agile more than many other sectors or other industries in general. The demand for moving away from the brick and mortar and just being able to provide solutions to customers on the go, it became a lot more important as banks needed to, check on their costs and also to improve on their bottom line. And so you find that with the entry of fintechs that again were coming to chip away part of the bank's profits and with the potential to actually throw away some of them from the market, it became a lot necessary for banks to find ways to catch up and possibly compete, if not to outperform the fintechs, to ensure that the banks sustain their mainstay in the business. So that is one main reason how Agile found its way in banking, and more particularly in Kenya, if I would say so. So if you look at Kenya today, for example, you'll find that almost every single bank has a way of doing Agile to the extent that some of them have set up specific units to deliver on their products and solutions using Agile ways of work. We have some that have set up distinct units, in fact, almost linked from the day-to-day operations of the bank functions, with a clear mandate to help lead the transformation, Agile transformation in the banks, to help realize value faster. These have come in different ways and challenges. Some started them and it could not really work for many reasons around how they were started, or just the challenges that emerged in the experience around how they were being run, and expertise involved, and many other factors outside that, including the org structure and all the functions, how they interrelate. So, but by large, at least, even for those that have Agile practices within the main function not be linked, it's something that has really improved. In one case, I remember we used to do projects in banks using different methodologies. If you look at technology products, for example, that were being delivered, you'll find that banks were tending to adopt a methodology of implementation that would then bring people together to understand the common way of delivering on products and projects. And in one bank where I was for a number of times, Prince2 was, the go-to standard, if I would say so. So there were massive there were massive budgets each year to train almost everyone in the bank on Prince2. And so there was the basic one, the foundation, and the practitioner. So in essence, it was good to help people have a common understanding around how projects are run. But there was also the other side of it where people had the certification and coming back, it was a piece of paper well kept with very little to show in practice and the value to the bank. But nevertheless, it was still considered the main methodology of practice for that bank. Over time, it was good, but with the fast changing technological space and need to roll out products and features faster, especially with the coming on board of M-Pesa in Kenya particularly, and the emergence of mobile banking, there was a lot of need to move with speed and roll out certain solutions, at least from a USSD perspective. And you find that these were still new concepts. There were not so many widespread use of USSD in banking. And generally, again, banks tend not to go for the latest technologies and methodologies. They want to be one step back just to be sure that whatever they are bringing on board is tested and confirmed to work, because the risk of, for example, non-compliance or data breaches arising from use of new technologies that have not been ascertained to work properly could be so costly to the extent of certain banks even getting sanctions from the regulators and so on. And more so just to ensure that the customer service and experience is consistent without much disruptions. And so that happened. We were able to roll out a number of solutions using USSD, starting with the very basic features of, just balance inquiries, seeing a statement, and even for a statement, you may want to see maybe the last 5 transactions, and alerts when maybe you've done a transaction and so on and so forth. Then we went a little more from the USSDs to mobile banking, again, starting with the essential features that a customer will need. Some of these were based on the common queries that were coming from the contact centers. So we also wanted to minimize cases of traffic to the contact centers where possible using technology. Most of this then we're doing with the hybrid model, where we are using both Prince2 and a bit of Agile hybrid. So that went on for quite some time. After about 5 years, there was interest in delivering faster, and Prince2 was not just helping us get there, because for the bank, the standard had to be observed, because it was part of even an audit aspect. If auditors come to audit a project, they'll ask you to give documents from startup, initiation, all the way to closure. And to do even a small project, and deliver a solution that is lightweight, much as there was customization, you would have to almost follow each of those processes and documentations. And if not required, you'll have to do an exception report that will be approved up to the project board, And some of these, sometimes you have an exception report here that needs to be approved, and the project board is not sitting soon. The sponsor is still needing the input of the other members of the project board. So you end up with delays that are not necessary and central to the core product. So over time, it was noted that these were not really the best ways, and the question was, what can we cut out so that we are left with what must be done to deliver these solutions? So over time, we were able to start looking at the projects in different categories: large projects, medium, and small. And the small ones were simply those that we are looking at as possibly doable within up to 3 months, And we then were looking at what alternative ways could we use to deliver them faster without possibly going through the lengthy process of methodology that was in use. So we came up with a way of looking at this across the determination of what should be delivered, the ownership from which business functions these were coming, and making sure that we had somebody of the knowledge of a product owner or a product manager from the business line who was speaking to this, besides the main senior user then, or rather the most experienced user in that department or head of that department. So we started working in a way by which these individuals who knew the processes that touch on those particular business lines would be at the forefront of proposing the specific features to be delivered, And then we'll do this across board, be it operations, IT, credit lines, retail lines, trade finance, corporate finance, and all around other functions, including compliance, where we had regulatory projects to be done. So this started to bring in a lot of collaborations across the functions, and we were able to have a number of issues that will take a long time getting started faster. And we did a paper anyway on that note that was approved up to the leadership to exempt some of these kind of projects from following the lengthy processes. And the more this was practiced, there was a realization that it is possible to get some of these rolled out faster without necessarily following the process. So if the process is not helping us as much to get the value we want faster, and there's a shorter way without breaking much of what we're looking at, how long more should we wait before we just get better at that? So that was accepted, and we practiced it for a while. So many years down the line, now the organization needed to, go agile, more agile, and do agile and be agile at the same time. So there was need to adopt scaled agile, and this involved a lot of change management, right from the leadership to the mid-level teams up to the end users. So we had different levels of trainings, and starting with the leadership to just make them have an understanding of what was being looked at in terms of agile and scaled agile particularly. With that buy-in, we were able to cascade this to teams, where we had to organize training for teams, cross-functional teams, to understand the basic elements that we are going to look at when we practice agile, scaled agile particularly. So that was mostly the champions from the different functions. We had about 4 days of training, and from that, we embarked on the real transition and transformation. So we also had, besides that part, we had what we called culture champions, who are helping now to pass the message home across the different divisions of the bank. And we then picked on what pilots we could, we then picked on which particular solutions we could pilot with to demonstrate if indeed the scaled agile would work. So we went through a lot of exercise in looking at the bank systems and products as they were, looking at the skill sets that we had, looking at the market demands that we needed to meet, and looking at the times that we had, and also other external factors, including the resources that we could outsource based on established or new to be service agreements for outsourcing and augmenting of resources. So from all that, we came up with the 7 key value streams, and to which now we could be able to align any single product or feature that was coming up. And these ones we aligned with the different skill sets. So for example, if you look at channels in the bank, we'll look at ATM, mobile banking, internet banking, and related channels, card and all that, and look at the kind of skills that we have that align to those, and the product lines that speak to those channels, and also looking at the dependencies that will be required from the non-core functions on those areas that also are required and relevant to have a channel-related product rolled out. So some element of marketing, and also a bit of compliance, and even the enterprise architect, just to be sure that whatever we are doing, we are not just doing great things built on sand, but they can be sustained and be scaled on sound lying technology. So from that, we had initial briefings with the team, and what we did initially was to let them continue with the way they were working on the projects that were running at that particular time. And we just picked on select initiatives that we wanted to go through this new scale agile framework of implementation. So we picked one of the teams, went through detailed look at the features we had picked for the pilot. We basically used a whiteboard. In fact, the bank was willing and bought us so many whiteboards, markers, and we were able to get designated rooms for each team. So each team, you will find they have a whiteboard. They had whatever they needed, the basics to be able to, look at the features, meet, discuss, and all that. So we went through detailed discussions from the epics to the features to user stories. And it was clear that much as we were doing the requirements before, the concept of user stories was still a new idea, even to the developers who are well versed with building requirements into solutions before. So we went through that learning process and went now to the features to break them down to the user story level at a minimum, so that they could be estimated to be able to help give a realistic commitment. So that we did for the items we picked for the pilot, and good luck, it went well for the pilot. And after the pilot succeeded, there was therefore need to scale this to other parts of the organization. And from the teams that we had formed, now we went to the full throttle of making this be applied in the other teams. So the other projects which were running in the old waterfall model, we brought them on board, all of them. And from that point on, we now started planning more in Agile and being able to deliver the solutions within the sprints. A lot of learnings, definitely, and challenges along the way. Like in certain cases, there was still a lot of the aspect of command and control, where you find the leadership still coming to demand, deliveries from the teams without giving the team the chance to, explore and find what works best. There was also the case of even within the teams where, like, the product owners were still so, controlling. In one of the cases, for example, we had to have a product owner released because he was not gelling with the team and was, in most of the time, causing disharmony among the team. So we did this consistently. We were able to assess the health of the deliveries at the end of the sprint, and we were able to share this with the leadership, and it was picked up, and today it is a working way of agile delivery for the bank. So that's just one of the banks where we implemented scaled agile. I'm sure there are still many more to discuss. I think this will come along the way, so I may pause at that for the moment.
Thank you, Eskil. Thank you for the detailed discussion. A lot of key points. We'll come to that. I can see a lot of questions for you. So over to Luke. I think we need to move to the next one quickly.
Yeah, guys, I want to spend more time debating and arguing with my esteemed colleagues. So I'm going to try and be super brief, and then we can actually get to more interesting things. First, I agree with Daniel that Batman is cool. But one thing that Daniel said is that Batman doesn't have any superpowers. That's what's interesting about Batman, right? So he does super things without having superpowers. And that's how I think of a good agile team, right? They're just normal people, but because they're a team. And Daniel, this is where you and I might have a debate. I am a Marvel fan, not a DC fan, because in general, the characters of DC are psychologically perfect, but physically flawed, right? Superman is OP, right? He's overpowered, except he's got kryptonite. Green Lantern is OP, except it's yellow light. I mean, come on, like lame. But if you look at the Marvel characters, they're physically strong and psychologically damaged. right? There is always some character flaw of a Marvel character. That was the great insight of Jack Kirby. And because of that, what the Marvel storyline is, team meets bad guy kicks team's ass, team regroups and says, we're not being a team and we got our ass kicked. However, if we became a team, we would win. Team becomes a team through trust and collaboration, and then kicks bad guy ass. Like, that's the Marvel storyline. And that's why I'm a huge fan of Marvel. My kids hear me talk about this all the time. Now, I also want to also point out that if you want to read a great book, an absolutely fantastic book, let me see if I can find it. I usually get this book, Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. It will make you a better developer. It'll make you a better user interface designer. It'll help you be better with customer centricity and user story mapping. It'll help you design better workflows. It's amazing. So this is one of my 5 books that I recommend every Agilist read. It's fantastic. Okay, so that's one quick comment. Second quick comment is, again, possibly in conflict with Daniel's opinion, I am an absolute date-driven Agilist. I believe that humans respond to market events and market rhythms. So I want you guys to imagine, do you know the company Benetton or Zara, the fast fashion companies? Have you heard of those companies? Nod yes, no, no. Okay, there's a line of clothing called fast fashion. And these people have manufacturing facilities that can go from a design to production in less than 2 weeks and get it on the shelves of stores. So why would you put swimsuits in the UK in January? Well, you wouldn't, right? Because no one's buying swimsuits in January. So every human responds to a market rhythm. And that market rhythm is something that we release into. And so for me, I am absolutely a date-driven Agilist because I want to know when my customers are time structured to absorb my release. Producing Agile software quickly, big deal. Producing what you need when you need it, that's a big deal. And the release, the value curve of a feature can plummet if you miss the market window. So I'm absolutely a date-driven Agilist, and I start with the dates of every project I work on. Another thing, I think SAFe is a fantastic thing. Obviously, I worked on it. And I'll just give you guys a hint. I'm working on a version of SAFe called Startup SAFe, which is a configuration of SAFe that little guys use, like me, and big guys use, like some of the things that we talked about. And after that, I'm done. So let's debate, let's talk, let's have interesting things to deal with my esteemed colleagues.
Oh, can I ask a question real quick?
Well, I hope so. Let's get talking,
Yeah,
man.
Can you just expand a little bit on participatory budgeting?
Sure. Participatory budgeting is a democratic process in which a group of individuals, in the case that we're talking about with schools, let me get a quick picture here. Just a second. If I show it, it'll be a little easier. So participatory budgeting is a democratic process in which a group of people, and in my case of my company, students, are given real money to invest in their school. Now, in the corporate world, right, Scaled Agile has participatory budgeting baked into the framework. And if you want to read how you can apply participatory budgeting in a corporate setting with larger budgets and larger money, you can see, and you can also see in this picture that it's many collaborating teams, each independently reviewing the budget to create a integrated result across the organization. So, but in the context of that we're applying it in First Root, we start with the kids to design the democratic process. So the kids come together and the kids say, this is who we want involved, and this is why we want involved, and this is the theme. Is it about school safety, for example, or is it about, you know, improving the lunch experience or athletics? The students create proposals. The students then take those proposals and refine them. The students then vote on those proposals, and then we fund and implement the winning projects. And in the process, we teach financial literacy to kids who often have never experienced true financial literacy. How much does it cost? Is it an operating expense? Is it a capital expense? Did you look at the total cost of ownership? What about implementation? We teach civics. How do we think about other people? How do we solve problems for the school? Sometimes in our civic life and our democracy, we make choices to help an underserved population. So how do we bring that to our kids? How do we have that experience with our kids? And then design thinking. So most Agile people know design thinking. And so we're giving the kids a taste of design thinking, because in the creation of proposals, it is divergent thinking. In the refinement of proposals, it is sense making. And in the selection of the proposals, it's convergent thinking. And so the reason I'm doing this is that economic inequality is absolutely devastating. If you read the book, The Spirit Level, you'll find that the greater the degree of economic inequality in a country, the worse the country performs on healthcare outcomes. And I'm also doing this because if you look at this, this is a really scary graph. It's saying that over time, democracies around the world are eroding. And in fact, the latest data from the United States says that we're below 24%. So 24% of kids say that it's a good idea to live in a democracy. And we wonder how we ended up with Trump. We wonder what Facebook is doing to our children. And we are willing to accept what happens in this toxic environment. And so I'm putting a stake in the ground and I'm saying, that's not my Agile. I personally I guarantee you guys, I could make a lot more money if I went to work for a social media company. Not worth it. Not worth what they do to the planet and societies themselves. And so this is the graph that I am committed to fixing. Now it's already used in hundreds of schools. I can skip this part real quick. But what I also want to point out is that, you know, most of the tech that we give kids is like the tech. So in the history of technology, right, we had ugly tech. Then we had consumer tech and it was beautiful, but our corporate tech was still ugly. Now we're bringing design thinking into corporate tech, and we're actually seeing beautiful software that we use in business. Like I've seen some systems created by insurance companies for their operators. It's beautiful tech, but the tech that we give our kids other than games is still ugly. For our kids who are in school right now, they're using tech that is awful. It's just awful. The learning management systems and those interactions, it's awful. So we're building something that is engaging and beautiful. And so when we talk about, you know, creating a proposal, we're using things that the kids know. When we talk about voting, we're talking about something that they can use. Now, the one thing that I haven't solved yet is, and one of the more interesting innovations is Africa tends to do a lot with text messaging that Western countries tend to do with smartphones. And so there's this real innovation in user interaction that has occurred in Africa with text messaging as a form of really effective communication. So we're working on that to make sure that we're accessible as possible. So that's participatory budgeting in kind of a nutshell. And then one more thing. Participatory budgeting is endorsed by the United Nations. And so the United Nations has a really interesting paper I can share with everyone, where they map participatory budgeting into 7 of the 17 sustainable development goals. So to me, this is kind of this mission-driven organization, because we've got to change the trajectory of the democracy curve so that we have more people who feel that democratic practices are valuable and useful and important, both in their public life and in their work life. And thank you for giving me that chance. I wasn't sure if I should say all that about PB, but I appreciate that chance.
Well, I think, I mean, to me, it was important because it shows that Agile can be used in a corporate responsibility way. And I think a lot of people don't see that. And it's good to have somebody like you that champions this, show people how they can take what they've learned and apply it to the good. So thank you for sharing.
I hope so. Thank you. I hope we're all doing that.
Thank you, Luke. By the way, you said, actually, so I was, since I'm the facilitator, I think you were supposed to talk about participatory budgeting in the first place. So I don't know if this was something miscommunication from my part.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I just didn't want to spend too much time, and because I would rather like have Daniel and I, talk about time is not a baseball bat and used as deploy regardless. For sure, I think that's the reason why you want to draw market release curves. So one of the things I added to SAFE was every team should draw a curve that if you go to the Scaled Agile website, should draw a curve, and you guys can steal this. This isn't part of SAFE. This is part of my prior work before I got to SAFE. But if you click on the roadmap icon and you scroll down, right, every market has market rhythms and release value, right? So like if you're a social media company, you can release anytime and it's kind of equal value. But if you're a toy maker, you can see that, in the Christmas shopping season, the value of your offering plummets. If you like releasing a new toy in January doesn't make sense. And so Daniel, I think it's a lot harder to say we don't want to use time as a baseball bat. I think we do want to tell the team, look, team, we all might not have a job if we miss our market window. So what are we going to do to make sure we hit that window? And I think that too many Agile people are coming into Agile from some bad experience, and they're like, don't give me a date, don't give me a deadline. Well, no, the world runs on deadlines. The world runs on dates, and we need to do that.
So the first thing is that our debate's going to be boring, because I agree with you. The challenge isn't don't use time, because in Lean, you have to use time. You have to figure out a way of getting your demand to value as fast and as good as possible. The problem that I've seen is that organizations don't explain time. Why do they want this done then? You have different stakeholders coming in with different priorities, and it doesn't make sense that they want to do this now, but we need to do this now. So let's change the way that we're doing stuff. And we never have the time to try to figure out what we should really be doing versus the time that we should be delivering to add value to the organization, whether it's, just to make things easier for other people in the organization or something that's going to go outside to customers. So I totally agree with you that time is one of the top 3 relevant metrics in the organization, but it's never explained properly.
Well, good. Then just make it as Agilists would say, make it an information radiator so that everyone knows the market and release curve. And I've done that with dozens of companies and dozens of industries, and everyone has created a curve that has provided value.
Yep.
Okay, so thanks for all the inputs. Very good discussion. So I would just remind everybody, if you guys still have any questions, you guys can post it in the link which I've shared in the chat. I just put it again in the chat for you guys. I will share my screens. Let's jump onto the questions and sessions, questions and answer sessions. Um, just give me a minute to share my screen so we can. Okay, so we have quite a few questions. Usually, what I would do is we would go round robin. So we'll pick each question and then we'll keep on moving between the panel members. But we only have one for Luke. I think you were towards the end. And okay, so let's start with Luke then. It says, since you have put it in the chat, could you please tell us what first root is and what's the motive behind it?
Yeah, I think we're all set on that, right? So I can add to it, but I think we're all set on that. Did you guys feel comfortable with my little overview? Thumbs up.
Yeah, I think if you don't have anything else to share on that, we are good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a couple of general questions. So let's start with these. By the way, I can see some of the questions are like, even though they are pinned to a particular panelist, but they're more of a general question. So if you guys feel you can add something to it, just feel free to jump in. So this question is actually, I will just sort by words. Okay, so why are we saying agile is agile in non-IT industries? I contend that any software-enabled product or service is an IT industry. Cars, IT, millions of lines of code, appliances, embedded systems, phones, heck yeah. So anybody wants to answer this or?
I'll start, and I know I'm going to get hit with a baseball bat, so I'm glad that I'm several thousand miles away. And yeah, I'm looking at you, Luke. I don't believe in an IT industry. How's that? Everything that you do in creating your development environments, in creating your integration environments, in creating your testing environments, in creating all the stuff that you do before something goes live and is of use to somebody is an absolute waste of time. It's a waste of time, it's a waste of money, it's a waste of effort. And my question is, you know, IT is there to help someone solve a problem. I'm sorry, technology is there to help someone solve a problem or to help someone get something that they need, and that need can actually be fulfilled by technology. That's what technology is there. I would be absolutely happy, and this is coming from an ex-CIO, if people said there are no more IT departments. We're going to treat technology like we treat paper and pens. There's something that we use, and if we need to go and do something with technology, then we'll work with the people that can help us, which oddly enough should be happening if you have product owners. Remember those guys? Everybody has scrum masters. Not everybody knows what to do with the product owner, so we kind of set him aside. And the product owner should be owning that product and should be owning the resources for that product in such a way that the outcomes are helping the organization or what they're trying to use. So everything is IT, maybe. More and more stuff we're using technology, absolutely. But I know of many service desks that serve large organizations that are paper-based, and their customers and user loves them. So remember the context here. And over to you, Mr. Holman.
Okay.
Well, I'm not. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I'm not sure how to respond to that, right? Because I think that not having so one thing we like to say in Agile is we don't want silos. and we want cross-collaborating teams. But the other thing that we can't deny about who we are as people is we all want to feel good at something. It's a deeply human emotion to feel good at something. And we are happiest when our personal interests align with our professional interests and we can be good at the thing that makes us happy. So I don't want my database designer designing my user interface, and I don't want my user interface designers to design my database, but I certainly want a cross-functional team that creates a great experience for my customer. So I'm not sure how to interpret I don't want an IT department, because to me that could be interpreted as I don't want to create an opportunity for people who are engineers to celebrate what their passion, skills, training, and personal excellence is about. I'm a geek, man. I love it. I like geeking out. And I think it's awesome, right? So I'm nervous about that. I'm also, I think it's merely semantics about what do you consider an IT solution or an IT team solving a problem. You know, design thinking, which I am a strong advocate of, and customer centricity, which I had a hand in bringing into prominence and SAFe, says, you know, we really want to understand the problem before we start to design the solution. So is understanding the problem part of IT or not? I don't know. For me, it is. But I think I think as leaders, right, you know, your job isn't to fix broken people. Your job is to understand who they are and play to their strengths. And so to me, having an IT department does make sense. Sure. I don't know. Let's rope in Ezekiel on this one, and see, you know, where he might land on that.
More on the same. I know if you go to organizations, in practice, organizations would have departments or divisions, and one of them is IT. What is changing significantly is that you find that even organizations that are developing fast are even beginning to appoint non-technical persons to the CIO role. So they are looking at people who have a business understanding and who have a market understanding that can be able to help IT, whatever is called IT, to drive the business value. So at the end of the day, the most important thing is the value that is delivered. And looking at agile practice where you have collaboration all through, the essence is to have a team that works together to deliver the solution. So if it is a standalone IT as it were before, you'll find that most of what they do will be to keep the lights on. But no longer can we be just relying on the lights. We need to have the gates open to take us to the next levels of transformations and value realization.
Okay, thanks for everybody. Thanks to everybody for all the inputs. Just on a high level, like the basic question, why are we saying IT agile in non-IT industries? The title of the event was the main idea behind this was as Agilist myself, who transitioned from PMP. I'm a PMP as well. I worked as a traditional project manager for quite a few years and then transitioned to Agile. I come across this question a lot. Like, this is a general misperception, especially in this part of the world, that IT is the most suitable industry for agile practices. Like, agile is mostly or widely used in software industry or IT industry. It cannot be used like the way it's used in IT in, for example, construction or any other these kind of oil and gas kind of industries, where the industry nature is more of a linear type of an industry where you plan everything and do everything as per the plan. So this was the main misconception which I came across a lot, and to address that, I just organized these two events, one last week, and this is the second part of it. So this was the answer from my end on this as well. Okay, let's move to the next one. I think this one is for Daniel, I believe, but it's posted in general. Are you a Marvel or DC fan? Perhaps the only real agile question that matters.
There's no Marvel behind me.
Okay. That gives the answer.
I won't hold that against you too much.
Okay, by the way, I'm Marvel fan as well. Ezekiel, if you can tell us about yourself. We already know about Luke and Daniel, so we are the two left.
I think we can go with that for now.
Okay, perfect. So Daniel, the next question is for you. So let's just start picking one from each, and then we'll see where we end up. The first one is I'd be interested in hearing more methods of implementing continuous celebration. Like, how can we implement this?
Well, I don't understand why every time you do a retrospective or every time you do an agile, you finish a sprint or some piece of work comes off of your Kanban board, why you're not celebrating that. The act of having the individual put something into the column of done and having done defined as an outcome that someone is now using and being able to interact with that person to get feedback on whether or not it's good stuff or bad stuff, that to me is a cause of celebration because it's a cause of learning. So I think as things move across, as things are being performed, as things are being completed, that gets you into the spirit of continuous celebration as a person and also as a team, and then for your organization itself. And there's nothing wrong for, leadership to come in and go, guys, that was really well done. And, sending candy or something out, not necessarily for that person, but for that family or whatever, on a regular basis is a good token. So those are some of the things that we do for continuous celebration.
Okay, thanks. Ezekiel, the next question for you is what fintech or banking sector facing challenges in agile transformation and how to address them?
Okay, so so there are several challenges that come around when organizations in fintech or banking want to transition to agile. One key aspect is that banks, more particularly, do require immediate value, and that value comes certain times with a lot of demand. So you may find that when you're transitioning, there's a lot that needs to happen before you can realize the value that the organization is looking at. So that is one challenge that needs to be understood. Tied closely to that is the buy-in from the leadership, because there has to be a clear understanding around the objectives and that should be met with the transition and over what period of time. So having a clear understanding with the leadership on the course of the transformation and what milestones are going to be looked at to measure the success of that become very important. Otherwise, the leadership will soon find that this is a unit that is being used to spend money and there are no returns. And the other aspect to it, again, is the regulatory aspect. You may find that, for example, a fintech would have a very good solution in their understanding, but taking it, for example, to a bank, you may find that the regulations of the bank may not allow that product to be sold or that to be taken by the bank, or maybe it may require a lot of modifications before it can make sense. And because the fintech, for example, thinks that they have a ready product, and to the bank, this is not a ready product, so that kind of discussion to make it harmonized may take some time depending on the complexity. And especially for banks, mostly you'll find that new products require regulatory approval. And that is something that may not be in fintechs in most of the cases. So that's another aspect. And most importantly is how the change transformation is handled. Do people know what is expected in the whole process and how they should act to achieve that? I think that will be the defining factor of success on that.
Okay, thanks. Luke, the question is, while we want leaders to avoid
Before we
imposing...
go on, I want to build on something that Ezekiel said. I think that, he said people need to know how they want to behave, right? Like, how am I supposed to do this thing, Ezekiel? That's what I heard you say. How am I supposed to behave in this new way of working, right? And
Yes.
what I think people need to remember is that you can create experiences for people to learn how to behave the proper way. But you have to remember that people spent some number of years of their career learning how to behave a different way. And for me, the single biggest root cause of failure of agile transformations or agile adoptions is impatience. It's kind of like, my background is in the physical fitness industry. And I used to be an aerobics instructor, kid you not. And when people would come to me as a fitness trainer and they'd say, I want to become healthy, I'd say, great. How many years, honestly, have you been not really living a healthy lifestyle? And someone would say, honestly, it's been like 4 or 5 years since I've really had a healthy habit, or 10 years. And my rule of thumb was give yourself 1 month for every year that you've been unhealthy to slowly develop a habit of being healthy. And so if I were to go to, and one of my last agile transformations was for a $2 billion a company, hardware, software, interesting things. And I said, well, how long have you been in business? We've been in business, 18 years. And I said, great. You've got 18 years of accumulated experience in working a certain way. And clearly it has been successful. You are a $2 billion company. So let's take at least 18 months to plan out a transition to Agile, and you'll probably need me for about 6 to 9 months. But your journey won't end when my consulting engagement ends. And I think, Ezekiel, to your point, we have to show people like this is the right way to behave. We have to train them, and then we have to support them as they're learning these new behaviors. And that's one of the things that I think people get tragically wrong about Agile. The failures are not failures of the people, they're failures of impatience.
Okay, thank you for the inputs. So shall we move to the next question, or Ezekiel has anything to say?
Yeah, I think largely that. So those are some of the major issues around that transition that will be worth considering around fintech and banking in a nutshell.
Okay. So, Luke, the next question is, while we want leaders to avoid imposing duration or deadlines on teams, would you say tools like roadmap or value stream maps can be used by teams as a indicator of where they are and where they should be and why?
Oh,
What
sure.
or
Absolutely. I think this is where, again, Daniel and I might have really strong agreement, right? I mean, the most important thing to do to get improvement in your DevOps pipeline, your CI/CD pipeline, even if you don't have a CI/CD pipeline, is to map it. And one of the last articles that I wrote for the Scaled Agile, for Scaled Agile when I worked there, was I rewrote the CI/CD pipeline articles to be more clear about how to map out your pipelines, because most of the time when people are starting, they don't really have a continuous integration, continuous delivery pipeline. They just have, who knows what they have. And that's the issue. If you don't know what you have, you can't possibly improve it. So the first step is just to do that value stream mapping, do that.
What is this?
Look at, your basic metrics of because most of your issues are going to be in some form of a delay of a handoff, not in the actual. I mean, a compile is going to take minutes in a modern system. It's getting it through whatever is the step. The human steps are going to give you your delays in your system. So you just got to map it out. So absolutely.
Perfect. So the next is a general question, so I'll just read it out. Whoever wants to answer this can go ahead. When product owner teams and the management team is same, and everybody from PO team enforces their own requirement as highest priority on that team, how Scrum Masters stop them to do that. Team always says yes to everything. Scrum Master trying to connect with team separately, and Scrum Master get termination letter warning by saying Scrum Master cannot connect separately as we. So these are two separate questions. So would you like to answer the first one? Anybody? This is more about Scrum. So, and it's a general question.
Well, I'll give you my go-to answer. I find that prioritization is the most important verb in business at all levels. Because if I don't have a clear prioritization, I don't know where to put my attention and my focus on. It doesn't matter if I'm an executive or a dev team member or an agile team. There are many techniques that are associated with prioritization, some from the agile community, some from the startup community. Many people have heard of OKRs, objectives and key results. That's just another mechanism of prioritization. Out of all the innovation games I created in my book, out of 12 innovation games, 3 of them are about prioritization. So there's more innovation games about prioritization. Prune the product tree is strategy prioritization. Buy a feature is feature prioritization, and add 2020 vision is benefit prioritization. So the reality is when teams don't have clear priorities, for me, the best way to solve that is to acquire more data, because the more data that you acquire, the more likely the priorities become easily agreed upon and apparent. If I don't know what my customers want, then it's an opinion. If I've done enough market research and interaction with my customers to understand their pain points and their problems, I can prioritize the solutions I need to create.
Yeah, I agree. You know, cost of delay, looking at the outcomes and figuring out which ones are going to be key for the results that you're trying to do for that particular time frame in your organization. Prioritization for me is like Luke said, is a discussion opportunity. And every time you have a discussion opportunity, you should grab it and discuss it, you know, up, and also discuss it with your team.
Fair enough. Okay, so let's move to the next question. Daniel, for you, the question is, what kind of activities can be helpful in reducing work stress level without jeopardizing the work environment and decorum of the company?
Well, I think, what kind of activity can be helpful in reducing work stress levels?
Yeah, so
you have to be able to have an organization that allows individuals to work together in such a way that they feel that they're contributing. They have to have a common language. They have to understand why they're being asked to do this, not necessarily how to do it, but at least have a very good understanding of why they're being asked to do this, and work with them to determine how their contribution is then going to facilitate that why. There's a lot of, you know, leaders and stuff like that that say, we want a marketing campaign. And then the marketing person goes and creates all the user stories, and the team goes and does those, and there's no linkage up, down, and across for that. And that to me introduces an unhealthy environment in the organization. I think if people start collaborating and communicating more clearly across, that's probably the number one way. I think the other way is that we ask teams to do stuff continually or every 2 weeks, but we budget annually, in which case then we mix up the word budget with funding. So we fund annually. And what we should be doing is agile funding, or some portion of that. You know, you went and did this, this is great. This offered us an opportunity to do this. So because of that, we can do some more stuff. And thank you very much for your contribution to that. Or, here's some more money to be able to go and do some upskilling. We do, 2-week sprints. We do annual reviews. We should be doing reviews on a more deliberate basis, on a more continual basis. So those types of things to me are activities that help an organization and not jeopardize the environment.
Thank you. So it's more about why this should be done instead of how it can be done. So Ezekiel, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right, or I'm always struggling with your name. Can a bank rely completely on Agile, or it's more of a hybrid environment more often?
So basically, there are certain aspects that can be easily transitioned to Agile for the bank. A lot more of this will do with the solution delivery channels. There are also cases, for example, where you're dealing with very large solutions and you're dealing with external parties who are not Agile in their practices. And for example, where you're going to contract on specific requirements to be costed on fixed cost by the vendors and so on, it becomes challenging to say you are going to be Agile throughout in the implementation. And so hybrid kicks in very easily. So I think there are solutions that can be done through Agile purely, and hybrid still applies for other aspects.
Okay, thanks. Luke, the next question for you is, how about treating IT or technology departments as a business center that develop or produce products which is sold to other customers? That's other departments like sales, HR, payroll, etc. What do you think about this concept? I think this is tied to the previous discussion we had.
Sure, I think it's fine. I mean, that's the SAFe model, right? The SAFe model distinguishes between operational value streams and development value streams. And if you look at the SAFe structure, SAFe says that any value stream produces a solution. It's just that the quote unquote IT department as a business center is producing a value stream that is an internal solution for an internal customer. Or at times, if the company is, there's one kind of trick in SAFe where if the company is small, like a startup, like First Root, then the value stream and the development stream merge into the same concept. So when you're very small and simple, if the solution that you're creating is one thing, right? Then the value stream, the development value stream, and the operational value stream are merged into one thing. However, if you're more sophisticated, or if you've got a more complex system, then then it does actually benefit you to distinguish between the operational value stream and the development value stream. And just as a side point, my personal preference in the application of SAFe is that I treat all of the suppliers of a given solution as external development value streams. So I have uniformity in how I want to run my business. And so what I mean by that is even a small company is going to rely on many external suppliers. So for example, I use Bright Verify as a supplier for email address verification. I use SendGrid to send emails to students. I use Twilio's API to send text messages. So I'm not building all this stuff. I'm relying on a whole set of suppliers. It doesn't really matter if those suppliers are inside the company or outside the company. They're still suppliers of solutions that get integrated into the operational value stream. And I think companies create more agility when they treat every supplier in a uniform manner. And I'll give you a concrete example. One of my friends was hired from PayPal to Airbnb because Airbnb decided that they didn't want to use an outside payment processor anymore because they're so big. So they're actually creating their own payment processor because they can build a payment processor that meets their needs cheaper than using an external payment processor just because they're so big. So that's an example of someone taking an externally provided service and bringing it internal. And I can give you examples of people who are taking internal services and divesting them and going outside because they can get a better solution from an outside vendor. But if you create that operational distinction with between the value streams between operational and development, you create flexibility in your business.
Okay, thanks. So, Daniel, the next question is how to deal with toxic people, especially in the top management. Does Agile help deal with this?
I don't think this is an agile question more than it's a management and people question. I think leaders say do agile and they don't understand what it is that they're asking people to do. And until they figure out that it applies to them as well, and they might need coaching and mentoring to do that, or they might need somebody brave from the organization to come up and go, hey, you guys need to play, you need to be, obstacle removers for us, and visually show them the challenges. Looking at value stream maps is very revealing because you see that it's not necessarily the IT team or the Scrum team that's the issue. It's all the different boards that leaders have asked people to go to that imposes governance that may or may not be required. And maybe that opens up their eyes. So, I mean, that's a very huge discussion that's across more than just the IT industry.
I like the coaching and mentoring part because this is something which can really help dealing with the mindset related problems. This sounded like a mindset related problem. Okay. What other agile frameworks you used in bank apart from scaled agile? Ezekiel, this is for you. I think you mentioned scaled agile somewhere.
Yeah, I believe that a deeper discussion will help, but just mentioning, I would say Scrum, Kanban, Scamban. We also used scaled Scrum. Those are the most predominant ones that I've used in the bank space. Each coming with its own share of advantages and challenges, but yeah.
So Luke, we don't have any questions for you, but you can jump in wherever you want. You can add something. Daniel, what are the ways to monitor the team or individual stress levels in our team? How can you understand this as this is related to human behaviors, which is so dynamic?
So I guess I'll flip the question. How do you know whether or not a friend of yours is having an issue? Or how do you know whether or not someone in your family is having an issue? It's a very difficult question to always get, or a very difficult thing to always get right. I think, look at the way that people react in the daily stand-up. Do they contribute or are they slumping? Do they stay quiet? Are they an active part of the team and helping peers when there's an issue? Do they, help in swarms? How are they reacting when they're being told that, this is what we're going to be doing for the next period of time? Do they contribute to that discussion or they just kind of roll their eyes and say whatever? And if that's different than what they used to do, then you need to take them aside and have a little chat and just have a little check-in. The quality of their work degrades. If all of a sudden they're not around and they're starting to get late, there's all kinds of signs that you have to monitor for on a daily basis.
Perfect. Just to add a bit on that, because I'm a student of NLP and EQ as well. As you said, so if you are in touch with the person, like if he's your colleague, you are probably in touch with him on a day-to-day basis. So you can easily get clues like the way he's talking, the way he's doing things, his body gestures, facial expressions, everything. So there are a lot of cues to catch, like the person is behaving differently. But yes, there is no one solution to all of this. Like there is no one fit all kind of a solution or a technique that can be used there. Okay, back to Ezekiel. Can you name or explain the 7 key value streams that you mentioned?
Okay, so this would likely depend on the bank at hand or the organization at hand, because it will vary based on the product lines they have, their specialty, and of the services that they offer. In the case of the bank I was looking at, for example, part of the aspects we looked at were the channels, where we're looking at mobile banking, internet banking. We're looking at also the credit lines from retail, corporate, up to trade finance. Then we are looking at third-party systems that we're integrating with the core system, either through, simply put, whether the APIs or whichever means of integration. Then we are looking at the core banking system. So features that will pertain to that will be looked at by a dedicated team, special and in core banking system that was being used. We were looking at also systems that were standalone. You know, it doesn't integrate with any other, but it just works on its own. You log in, like for example, if you have one of them was what we are calling a customer instruction management system. So if a customer goes to the branch, they write the instruction maybe in a piece of paper, somebody scans it, puts it in a workflow, it goes to the next operation person, and it's processed in that system up to the end. And then we're also looking at the infrastructure.
I think Ezekiel's internet issue. Is it just me or everybody else as well?
Yeah, it's frozen.
Okay, let's move to the next question. Daniel, you only have 2, so just pick one that you want to answer, and we'll skip the other one.
Read Better, Faster, Safer by Jonathan Smart.
Okay. Can you put that in chat, Daniel, to make sure that we are. So this is done. Do you want to go ahead with the next question as well, since Ezekiel is still not around?
Oh wait, I went to look for the links of the book.
Sure.
Any other ideas that continuous celebration can be implemented and foster better improvement? I'm trying to get teams, and it's very difficult, to celebrate effort as much as success. I'm trying to get people to realize that the better that they use technology doesn't mean that they're going to lose their job. I'm trying to get people to understand that they can mine data and use it to help introduce new stuff like artificial intelligence, which then means that they need to learn something to be able to use artificial intelligence, to use that data in a good way for the organization. So those types of things to me are all part of continuous celebration, just helping an individual, become a better person and a better technologist or agilist.
Great. Just one more thing to add there as well. Again, back to EQ. I personally found having self-awareness is very important. Self-awareness and social awareness around people that are around working with you. That really helps in improving the mental health as a worker, and especially in a stress environment, because you get to know what are your trigger points, what things get you triggered, and how to deal with those kind of situations when you have one in front of you. So that really helps. Whoever asked this question, I don't know if he's still here, but if you can read a bit of emotional intelligence, there are a lot of things which can be done with these kind of things with EQ. Okay, I think Ezekiel is back, I believe. Okay, we'll get back to the question which Farouk has posted. I wanted to keep it at the last, just as a refresher. So who would win if there is a clash between DC and Marvel teams?
It depends on who's writing the story. Interest goes where money flows. If it's DC writing that story, gee, I think DC wins. If it's Marvel writing that story, gee, I think Marvel wins. So, you know, I just say interest goes where money flows. So if you want to know where the interest lie, track the money.
Back in the late 1970s, DC and Marvel actually wrote big comic books that featured characters across the spectrum, and nobody won. They were always helping each other at the very end.
Yeah, they were generally, that's true. I remember those. So yeah, the trick is creating, you know, the super duper batter person that requires both universes to collaborate, or some of the multiverses to work together.
Okay. So Ezekiel, we are almost up with the time. So would you mind if we skip these 3 questions? I will see if anybody reaches out to me to get the answers, and I'll be in touch with you if we have to provide the answers. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. So I think we are all good. We kind of answered almost every questions. That was great. Thank you again, everyone, for being part of this. I personally took notes, a lot of new learnings for me as well. Really enjoyed the discussion. Great you all here. Thanks for you, and thanks for sharing all the valuable things. Anybody has anything to say?
Thank you, Mohammed, for creating this environment. It was really great.
Thank you very much. Okay, then everybody, take care.
Okay.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Ezekiel, Mohammed. Thank you so very much. God bless you all.
Thank you very much.
All the best.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.